The Don Quixote is a two-part novel series written by Miguel de Cervantes. Part 1 was released in 1605 and became an instant success. Part 2 would be released a decade later in 1615 and would also be successful. A Part 2 released by a different author, going by the pseudo name Alavenida, was actually released in 1614 but was critically panned by not only critics but also Cervantes himself. It is often theorized that Avellaneta's work is what inspired Cervantes to finish Part 2 of Don Quixote. In the prologue of Avellaneta's Don Quixote, Avellaneda insults Cervantes for no apparent reason. In response, Cervantes, throughout Part 2 story, writes subtle shots at Avellaneta's work, and Avellaneda is even a character in Part 2. Cervantes would actually die just a little after the release of Part 2 due to type 2 diabetes. It is important to look at Miguel de Cervantes himself before reading the Don Quixote. Cervantes was born in 1547 to a poor Spaniard doctor. At 21, he joined the army and in 1575 would get captured by pirates along with his brother. The pirates would then go on to sell them to Moors as slaves. Cervantes attempted 3 times to escape slavery but failed every time. Finally, in 1580, his ransom was paid and he returned to Spain. These life experiences would ultimately shape the Don Quixote and what it would become. So what is the Don Quixote? Note: this video only covers part 1 because this book is long. The Don Quixote is a story about a middle-aged man named Don Quixote. He is a Spaniard from La Mancha in central Spain. After reading books about knights and chivalry, he decides to become one himself. He wants to be a hero to the weak and defeat all those that are evil. After a failed first adventure, he decides that he needs a squire to assist him on his journey. That man would be Sancho Panza, a laborer who, in exchange for becoming Don Quixote's squire, was promised that he would become a wealthy governor of an island. Sancho plays the straight man to Don Quixote's bizarre tendencies. Along with Don Quixote's old horse named Rocinante, the duo travels all over Spain in search for fame and fortune. The story follows Don Quixote's exploits and the stories of people that he meets on his journey. One such character is a peasant named Dulcinea del Toboso, whom he believes to be a princess and gives up food, shelter, and comfort, all in the name of chivalry for her. Other bizarre stories involving Don Quixote include stealing and injuring random citizens that he believes is a danger to his knighthood, stealing a barber's basin because he believes it's a mythical helmet, leaving a boy with an evil farmer just because the farmer promised he would not harm the child. While Don Quixote is doing this, Sancho is the one who usually has to deal with the punishment of Don Quixote's actions. Even with these negative stories, there are quite a few touching stories involving Don Quixote, like Don Quixote visiting a funeral for a student who died because of love, him saving a woman from slavery on a ship, and him unknowingly reuniting lovers of 2 couples. So why is the Don Quixote so important to literature? It's important because it's one of the most influential books of all time, especially for Western literature. It's one of the founding works of modern Western literature. It's one of the earliest Western novels ever created. It has influenced United States writers such as Mark Twain and William Faulkner. It has also influenced English novelists like Charles Dickens and Graham Greene. Don Quixote also spawned a great number of English expressions like the sky's the limit and wild goose chase. Don Quixote mixes literary techniques like realism, meta-theater, and intertextuality all into one entertaining and interesting package. It covers the danger of being over-idealistic and even coined the phrase Quixotic, which means to be hopeful or romantic in a way that's not practical. The Don Quixote is a fun, entertaining piece of literature that should be read by any fan of Western literature.